Hello to you and welcome to today's colour swatching video. In my last video I shared an art unboxing as well as a peek into my studio, and I opened up these brand new paints that I've ordered from Jackson's Art, and they're Daniel Smith watercolours. Now I'm going to be testing them out on this smooth watercolour paper pad, which is an A3 pad from Cass Art online, and it's their smooth own brand paper. It's really very good. It's got a nice sort of gentle texture to it, which I'm hoping will pick up any texture or granulation that these magical paints will reveal to us as we go on. I'm going to be using a 1/4 inch Icon brush, which is a Jackson's own brand paint brush, to swatch these paints for you. So I think what we'll do now is I'll put some of these paints in the palettes over here and we'll make a start. Okay, so I've put a little dot of each paint colour into these ceramic palettes, and we're going to swatch these first. These are from the tubes and they are the 5mm size. So I'm really excited to try these. After we've looked at those, I will give you a peek into this little hand poured set of watercolours, and we will also swatch those as well today. So I'm adding a little bit of water to the first colour, which is French Ultramarine, and I'm already really liking the depth of the pigment in this. The second blue in the palette is phthalo blue with a red tone to it, and I hear this is a really nice one for mixing. Let's try that next to the French Ultramarine. Oh wow, it's lovely and deep, very rich. I think they complement each other really quite nicely. Let's see what things look like when we add a little bit of this beautiful turquoise colour. This is Cobalt Teal Blue. Oh, it's lovely, isn't it? I do love these ocean colours. Let's add a little bit more of the watercolour paint to the top just to thicken it out with the pigment, so we get a really good idea of what this paint performs like and looks like when it's dry. It's going on really nicely, I have to say. So next I'm going to try out the Hansa Yellow Medium. This is a lovely bright yellow, very sunshiny and warm. Let's pop a stripe of that next to this beautiful cobalt blue. Oh, I really like this. It's got a nice hue to it actually. It's not too acidic. not overpowering. It's got a richness and a nice depth to it. This is the first time I've ever used this particular shade of yellow, and I have to say I'm suitably impressed. Swiftly moving on to the yellow ochre. That's a lovely warm shade. Again, just drop a bit more pigment in the top here. Oh, it's beautiful. It's almost reminding me a little bit of terracotta. A lovely warmth to it. That's a lovely one. It's really funny how you get sort of different brands who have the same colours in their and collections of paint, and they can really vary. It might be interesting actually to do a short video sometime for you to compare and contrast some of the different brands with some of the more popular and well used colours like yellow ochre and ultramarine, and see how they fare against one another. So the final colour I'm going to swatch today is this gorgeous transparent pearl orange. Now, I saw this over on an artist called Liz Steele's Pinterest, and I clicked through to her blog, and she highly recommended it as a lovely sort of brick red orange, quite vibrant without being too vibrant, and I can see what she means. This is really lovely. I said in my last video, I'm not a huge fan of bright scarlet reds. I find them a little bit jarring. It's not a colour that I tend to use in my work, but this one absolutely is, and I can imagine that it would blend really nicely as well with the other colours here that I chose. Just getting a bit more paint on my brush, and we'll drop a bit more of this beautiful rich pigment in at the top here. Look, wow. So there are the 6 shades. So we have French ultramarine, phthalo blue with a red tint, we have cobalt teal blue, Hansa Yellow medium, yellow ochre, and the transparent pearl red. Now what I'm going to do is let those dry, and we'll come back to them in a little while and see how they look when they've dried. I can already see some lovely granulation happening around in some of these colours, so we will come back and have a look at those in a second. Meanwhile, we'll move on to the next box of paints that I sent for. And this is the Daniel Smith Desert to Mountains half pan set of hand poured watercolours, and they come in a lovely little box like this. So let's take a closer look at those and give them a swatch too. So this is a set of 6 watercolours. If we can get in. And they come in this little palette, and they've each been hand poured, so that's why they look a little bit irregular compared to ordinary half pan paints that have been poured mechanically. They also come with these empty pans, so you can actually fill them with your choice of watercolours as well, using tubes to fill them. My plan was to actually move these 6 colours into the other set of Daniel Smith paints that I recently bought, and that was the blue set, which was the Serene to Dramatic set. So I'd have 6 down here and 6 down there, and I think they would really complement each other nicely. I'm quite excited to try these out though and see what they perform like on paper, so we'll give those a go now. Now handily, they do send you a little palette plan inside the box so that you can see which paints you're using, because there's nothing actually on the palette itself to tell you which paint is which. So you've got Buff Titanium, Raw Sienna Light and Bronzite Genuine running along the top there. And on the bottom from left to right we've got a beautiful Venetian Red, Burnt Sienna Light and Lunar Black. Right, let's give these a whirl. So I'm just going to add a little bit of water to activate the paint, and the first one I'm trying out is Buff Titanium. And straight away this shade is reminding me of putty or plaster. It's lovely. Just drop a bit of water into that to dilute it. It's a lovely subtle colour. Now the next shade, which I'm going to put next to it, is Raw Sienna Light. This third one is Bronzite Genuine. Now it almost looks a little bit shimmery in the palette. I don't know if my eyes are deceiving me. I'm sure we'll be able to see better when it dries. There is definitely some kind of mica-like particles in this. I'm starting to see it as I'm adding a little bit extra paint. Hopefully I'll be able to pick it up on the camera when we have a closer look when it's dried. This is really pretty, really beautiful. Okay, so moving on to Venetian Red. I knew I was going to like this one as soon as I saw it, and it hasn't disappointed. That's a delicious deep red. Again, it's sort of got that lovely warm brick tone to it that I do tend to prefer. The next to last colour I'm adding is Burnt Sienna Light, which complements Venetian Red beautifully. Oh, look at this. And the last colour in the palette is Lunar Black. Wow, that's lovely. And these paints, as I found with my very first purchase of Daniel Smith watercolours not so long ago, just a few weeks ago, I sent for my first ones. The application of them onto paper, they're beautiful. I've used lots of different watercolours over the years. I'm a huge fan of Schminker, but these are definitely up there, sort of perhaps a little bit above Schminker. I don't know, there's just something really quite magical about these, and the way they perform when they dry, the granulation and the textures that appear are really unlike anything I've ever used before. I don't know if you can see here, but there's almost a sort of gentle sort of buff pinkish hue forming as I've added a little bit of water here, and you can see it's starting to granulate exceptionally well. This is what I found with Daniel Smith paints. The alchemy that occurs is really something else. So again, we will put these to one side to dry and come back in a short while and take a look at the results. So the paints have now dried and we are getting some beautiful granulation effects happening. This bit here reminds me of frost on a windscreen in the winter here. It's kind of got these beautiful sort of fern-like patterns happening. I hope you can see that. Yeah, I'm sure the camera's picking that up. It's really beautiful. The Cobalt Teal Blue has also granulated really nicely, and it's formed this unusual pocket of colour in the bottom. It's almost like a rock pool. There's sort of swirls of blue happening in there. Isn't that astonishing? I also wanted to say about the French ultramarine, it's almost got like a lavender tone to it, and I think that's really lovely. So moving on to the Hansa Yellow, there's not as much granulation here, but it's a lovely rich golden yellow, and I love the shade of that, and I think it complements the other colours really, really well. The yellow ochre has granulated beautifully as well, as has the orange. So the more water you add to these paints, the more effects you seem to get. There's again that sort of feathering going on in the bottom there. So I'm really happy with those. Moving over to the Desert to Mountains set, the buff titanium has some nice granulation in the middle here, and the raw Sienna Light as well has sort of pooled in the bottom and created some nice sort of shapes and patterns there. Now the Bronzite, which was the one I thought was shimmering, it really is shimmering. So I'm hoping the camera, can you see the shimmers in that? It's really quite subtle, but they are definitely there. There are little sort of tiny fragments like mica that catch the light. It's a stunning paint. Moving on to the last three colours, the Venetian Red. I think that's absolutely stunning. Love the pinkish tone in this as it's been watered down, and it works really nicely next to burnt Sienna Light as well, which has granulated really nicely there, as you can see. But the one that's taken my breath away, I think, is the Lunar Black. It's got this stunning buff pinkish tinge to it, and it has dried in the most extraordinary way. As I say, I keep saying alchemy and magical, but these paints really are both of those things, and that's actually left me quite lost for words. That's absolutely stunning. So there we have the 12 new colours all swatched up, and I think they actually complement each other really, really nicely, and I'm excited to use them in some artwork. I'm also looking forward to creating some bespoke palettes of my own using these tubes and these little empty half pans. I sent for these from Jackson's Art Online, and I will pop a link below the video so that you can take a look at the materials that I've got here for yourself. So I think that might be nice to share that video, actually, how to make your own palettes using tube watercolour and empty pans. So that's another video that I've got lined up for you. I would also love to share a mixing video too, where we explore these paints and the ones from my previous art haul, which includes some beautiful greens and the palette of Serene to Dramatic colours, which was the blue set. So I will look forward to sharing that with you very soon. I hope you've enjoyed the video today. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care. Bye for now. you.